You often see so many biotechnology companies putting out newer and newer vaccines for the coronavirus. Each vaccine is being compared to the previous vaccine based on the efficacy rate. Initially, Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines came out with an efficacy rate of 95% and 94%, respectively. Generally, much like the public, you would assume that it would only be successful if another new vaccine would roll out if it had the same or higher efficacy rate than these two vaccines. But this was not the case. Unlike Pfizer and Moderna, the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine was approved for emergency pandemic use early in March. But Johnson & Johnson vaccine was a single-dose shot that had an efficacy rate of 66%. Compared with Pfizer and Moderna, this rate was way lower, which caused controversy on the news and in public about how effective the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is. Even AstraZeneca, Oxford's double-dose vaccine, was released with a 67% efficacy rate. The Russian, Sputnik V, and Novavax were also released with an efficacy rate of 92% and 89%, respectively. The main concern was that none of these newer vaccines had the high and precise efficacy rate of Pfizer and Moderna, yet they kept on rolling out and got emergency use approval from the FDA. Why was this so? The answer does not require a lot of digging, but it does lean towards the technical side and conceptually biological, so it may not be simple knowledge for the public. This could explain why there is a divide between anti-vaccinators and pro-vaccinators. The pro-vaccinators could not defend the complex reasons for choosing which vaccine is the best against COVID-19. This is where we come in. The team at Stock's Telegraph did all the research for you to break down the myths and complexities around the vaccines and viruses that are out there, stirring the public for people like you. The answer we came to conclude? The answer has something to do with understanding the virus, the vaccine, the variants, and the wave. Overall, every vaccine is effective eventually in the aim to reduce the intensity of pandemics. So let us explain all of this step by step. First thing first, let's explain what coronavirus does. Consider SARS-CoV-2 to be like a small spiky ball the size of a cell or any other virus. The outer surface of this layer is called a protein layer, which shields the inner genetic material. The genetic material consists of RNA, which is basic commands for the virus itself on what to do once and how to affect a host, once it enters the body. Its mission is simple: to replicate itself once inside the body by using the cells of the organism, and causing the immune system to respond to the multiplication of the coronavirus cells. The virus initially weakens your immune system and can pass into your lungs, and cause inflammation in the lungs. Fluid starts building up in your lungs, and you find it hard to breathe. Other symptoms like pneumonia start to develop, where you have chest pains, headaches, muscle aches, fatigue, fever, and chills. The intensity of the attack ranging from the safest case scenario of no symptoms to the worst scenario of causing death, depends on how much the virus has made the immune system vulnerable and throw into overdrive. Now that we know what the virus does, let's figure out how the vaccine is supposed to work against it. There are multiple ways vaccine is created, but the purpose of all of them is to prepare the immune system to fight against the real threat of a virus or foreign body by getting activated and prepared through a weaker substitute of the virus. There are initially 4 types of main vaccines. The first 2 involve using a weakened virus or a dead form of the virus, both of which will create the same but significantly less harmful effects of the virus to trigger your body's immune system response. The third and fourth way is to inject a safe microdose amount of the virus or an inert toxin which creates the same response in the body. Vaccines take 10 to 15 years to be approved through FDA due to stringent and rigorous testing, trials, and experiments for different stages and phases. The urgency and deadliness of the pandemic's contingency made it imperative that a vaccine should be created in breakthrough time. The US government accelerated the vaccine creation process by the program strategy coined as Operation Warp Speed. On December 11, 2020, the FDA issued the first ever emergency use authorization for the COVID vaccine, which allowed Pfizer, Biotech COVID-19 vaccine to be distributed in the USA. Many other vaccines followed suit after this. As a result, the vaccine was created in an incredible amount of time, and this is because the process of vaccine creation by Pfizer and Moderna was altered to make the process more efficient. The mRNA vaccine that these two biotech companies created would produce mass amounts of protein spikes not synthetically in a lab. But it was directly inoculated in the human body so that the body would produce the protein spikes. The result was that the vaccine first multiplied the protein spikes in the body by letting the cells read the vaccine's mRNA and DNA genetic information. Protein spikes were harmless but effective enough to create an immune reaction in the body, and prepare the immune system against what is registered to be a foreign attack. Now let us understand the efficacy rate of vaccines and what it has to do with the new waves and variants of the virus. The vaccination efficacy rate is tested by placing a placebo group and a control group given the vaccine with the same number of participants. After several timelines of scientists and experts observing the two groups, they collect the data of both groups to distinguish which group was more affected by the coronavirus. If 0 people out of 100 in the control group are affected by COVID-19, while all 100 people were affected in the placebo group, then it is said that the vaccine has a 100% efficacy rate. These efficacy rates depend on the timeline of the experiment and observation because the COVID-19 virus kept mutating, to new variants and new waves surged the likelihood of vaccine. Both these variables affected the result of the control group in the efficacy rate test. Moderna and Pfizer showed a 95% efficacy rate because they were tested in the first wave of COVID-19, which had relatively no new variants. In contrast, the second and third waves brought mutated variants. These new variants brought with them weaker, but tougher versions of the virus that would alter the probability of getting the virus, in the control group, thus which leads to a lower efficacy rate. Therefore vaccine experts state that the efficacy rate is not the right way to compare vaccines because the experimental variables and scenario were never the same in any vaccine trial. However, they also reiterate that the main purpose of the vaccine is to give the body a fighting chance against coronavirus, and prevent severe symptoms that can cause hospitalization as well as death. Hence, the whole race to manufacture vaccines should equally focus on being the global race to get the vaccine. However, the latter aim has one crucial component required to make the world a globally safer place against the pandemic: vaccine equity. Many rich countries have created bilateral deals directly with the vaccine manufacturing companies and have secured doses that are twice or even more than thrice their population size. Thus, all the major vaccine manufacturing companies are already booked for delivering vaccines, which are yet to be produced till the end of 2021. These deals and investments are made despite knowing if the vaccines some new companies are developing would actually be approved. This was the case with AstraZeneca when a rare blood clotting disorder was reported in its tests. The whole European bloc banned the use of AstraZeneca, yet all these rich countries had enough deals to sustain more than enough doses for their population. This leaves poor countries without any access to vaccine supply. COVAX, a global initiative by 3 global health groups, including the WHO, is trying to convince the countries to form multilateral deals through this initiative as well as provide donations for poor countries. These multilateral deals would allow manufacturing on a global scale, rather than a country-wise scale, allowing for cost reduction of production, and equitable distribution for both poor and rich countries. However, COVAX's initiative is voluntary as many countries have already signed bilateral deals, which begs the question, how effective can this global health initiative by global health groups actually be, if it works at half its potential? We established that getting any vaccine despite its efficacy rate will make you and the world safer against COVID-19. But can we be genuinely safe if all the rich countries hoard the vaccines for themselves, and leaving the poorer countries with raging new variants of coronavirus that will affect the vaccine's efficacy? Are you immunized against COVID? Which COVID vaccine did you receive? You are welcome to leave a comment. Thank you for watching this video. Please share and subscribe to our Stocks Telegraph channel, and we hope to see you in the next one.